ACC Bridge, sharing Revit models across ACC hubs. This webinar is brought to you by Graitec. My name is Misty Scott, and I am pleased to be your moderator today. As a reminder, you can find a schedule of upcoming events, webinars, and training on our calendar at asti.com/calendar. Now, before we dive in, we'd love to learn more about how we can best support you and your business. So if you could take a moment to answer the poll questions on the right side of the screen to help us learn how we can best serve you. We'd also like to invite you to take advantage of our Up and Ready for docs. And I know, Frank, you're going to let us know a little bit in a second when I pass it over to you, kind of what we have in store for that. But you can scan the QR code on the screen, but I'm also going to put this in the chat box for y'all if you're watching on demand, and then I'll put it on the screen at the end during Q&A. All right, very pleased to introduce our expert today. Frank is an implementation consultant for AEC at Graitec. He empowers AEC professionals with expert guidance on BIM workflows, Revit, and Autodesk solutions. Thank you so much for joining us today, Frank. And I'm going to turn it on over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Misty. And hello to everybody else. So I'm excited today because I want to talk a little bit about how Bridge works and what it is ultimately. I want to give us a couple of examples as well, and they're going to be live examples. So you should be able to see my screen already. So first of all, before we get started with anything else, what is Bridge? Well, Bridge is a way to connect or to transfer data between projects. Now, those projects can be from within the same hub. And in this example that you see here on my screen, I'm an account admin for a company called Graitec North America. And so right now I've actually filtered so that all I see is this one project. But if I remove the filter here, I'll see all of the other projects. And so Bridge will allow me to transfer files, transfer data, different file types between projects within the Graitec North America hub. But it also allows me to connect and transfer files to other hubs as well. So on the second tab here, I have another hub from a different company, well, different named companies, the same company, and it's titled Graitec AETG Main. But from a hub perspective, these two are different companies. And so in today's example, I'm going to talk about how to transfer data between two different companies and, of course, between two different projects. Note that I am using Revit 2026. That's out already, in case you didn't know. And so it's got a couple of cool features. None of those features we'll be talking about today. They don't relate to what we're talking about. But one thing I do want to mention in terms of versions, if we're talking about Revit, is that even though the bridge allows you to connect different projects, even of different projects with different versions of Revit inside of each project, the same limitations will apply. So if I had a 2026 project and I had a 2024 project, I can bridge them together and I can even transfer files, the RVT files or the PDF files and all of that. But whenever Revit tries to open any of these files or link them in, they will have the same limitations as you are already familiar with from a Revit standpoint. From an AutoCAD perspective, it's going to work just the same as it's always worked. Okay, so let's get started then. What I want to do is first introduce us to the demo environment that I have set up for us today. So I'm going to jump into one of the projects under the Graitec North America account, and it's titled 2026 Architecture Project. So just keep in mind that that for one company, it's called the Architecture Project, and for another company called the Graitec AETG Main, it's going to be called 2026 Plumbing Project. So, of course, I've simplified a little bit of the project just for explanation purposes, but the concepts that I discussed today will apply to more complex situations as well. And there's a lot of ways to go about adding bridge connections and sharing files, between folders and all of that. So jumping back to the architecture project, I'm going to go over to the docs, and I'm going to do the same with the other one in just a moment, but I want to introduce you to the folder structure that I'm using. Now, folder structures are something that will depend on the different projects that you're involved in. It is not required that, of course, the two different projects, whether they come from the same hub or are in different hubs, be similar. That's not a requirement. You'll see in a moment how that can be handled. However, what the folder structure I'm using is largely inspired by the ISO 19650 international standard, which says that team folders, or folders that contain data that's pertinent only to that discipline, fall under a folder called WIP, or work in progress, and all of the files that are ready to be shown to the other disciplines are going to go under the folder shared. So that's just an international standard in terms of the folder structure, and that's what I'm using. Now, I broke off a little bit by creating this other one called approved sets, and that's actually because of what I want to talk about today. So that's the first project, and in this project, my architecture under the WIP folder, my architecture folder contains the central model. Okay, now this is the published model, of course, from a docs perspective, but this is going to be the central model. This is the live model. Normally, I won't share that, and in this example, I also still won't share that. I'm going to package it to put it under the shared, and then that's what's going to get shared outward. Okay, but that's just a quick introduction to that folder structure. Looking at the plumbing project, we have a very similar folder structure here with a little difference. So here I've got the work in progress. You see that this is the internal. So anything under the WIP, you can see as this is the internal or native to this ACC project. So natively, the plumbing discipline is inside of this project. And then I've got, of course, the shared folder for that project there. So that's the buildup. That's kind of the setup. So the idea is that we need to transfer data back and forth. For example, I'm under the architecture project, and as the architect, I say, well, I want to bring in the plumbing's file, their RBT file. Now, I've already gone off and done it because it's good practice to have some of this stuff already done instead of creating it live, because if I were to do it, you would have to wait the 5 minutes that it usually takes to get things going. But I'm still going to run through every single click that I ran through, and I did leave some things undone so that I can do those things live. They don't take too long. Okay, but the requirement here is we're going to say, hey, look, we want plumbing's RVT file over to the architecture project. Okay, and then at the same time, we're going to want the approved sets PDF file from architect over to the plumbing project. That's the overall of what we're discussing today, and we're going to handle that in two main ways, and that is through using docs, or in other words, creating a bridge and transferring data through the use of docs, and then at the same time creating a bridge or using the same bridge but transferring data in terms of design collaboration. There are actually two ways to use bridge, and you'll see it because if I go to design collaboration, you see that bridge is still here as well. The bridge can be done both within the design collaboration and the docs, and they are different. So this is what I want to discuss. This is partly of what I want to discuss today. So first, the design collaboration portion of this, because it's the easier one actually, and it's the one that doesn't require as much setup. Okay, and it looks something like this. So before anything, you always have to first create that initial connection. Now, that initial connection will occur by any one of the two parties. So whether the plumbing project or the architecture project, whichever one wants to start the connection can do so. Here's how that works. Let's just say that the architecture project team is the one that's going to initiate that bridge. They would do it by going over to, and they can do this under docs and design collaboration, or they can even do it within the project admin. In terms of the connection, it doesn't matter. Okay, it doesn't matter. They're all going to look like this. And what they would do, and what you would do, is you'd go over to bridge to a project, and you would type in the email of the person that is in the other project. So in my example, I'm going to go in and type my email. Now, you might find this the same as I did. It doesn't give you your name or the other person's name. I'm not sure how this, they don't find my name, but that's okay. You can click on invite, and that will work just the same. And you would click on send invitation to bridge a project. Okay, now if you did this, then you would expect the other person to get an email. Now, presumably it would be a different person, but it's still me. So all I've done, though, is from one project, I sent an email to an email address that says, hey, I would like to connect my architecture project, because that's where I'm starting from, to your X, like whatever your project is. Now, you would already be in contact with the other team. This isn't something that you could just send an email, and then they wouldn't really know which project of theirs, because they may have lots of emails, which project of theirs they need to connect that with you. And so I believe this is the one. Yeah, this is the one, I believe. So Frank wants to bridge projects. He's coming from the 2026 architecture project, and he wants you to select a project. So if I click on this, It's going to open up the web browser. It's going to be a new tab. And this is where I'm going to tell the system that I want to bring in the plumbing project. Okay. So here's where I would say, okay, well, in my case, it's the same person, but this would be the other person for the plumbing project. They would go in and say, I want to bridge this project with this project that this call came from. This whole process is what I like to call the handshake, because it really represents a handshake. It's where you connect the 2026 architecture project to the plumbing project when you hit bridge projects, and I've already done it, so it's not going to work on my end right now. But once I do that and I connect those two projects, then all I've done is created the handshake. So from the initiator's perspective, their bridge will show, hey, you're connected to the plumbing project from a company called Graitec AETG Maine, and from the receiver, if they go to their bridge, it doesn't matter if they're under docs or project admin, they would see, hey, you're connected to a project called Architecture Project from a different company called Graitec North America, which is the other one. So this is the handshake. Now, at this moment, no data is being transferred. The only thing that happened when we did this whole process is that now we have a possible path through which we can send data. Now the settings and the actual transfer of data can begin. But until then, all you've accomplished is the handshake. And you can see that actually because under the plumbing project, I don't have any files or folders that I'm sharing. I haven't done anything there. And I am actually sharing out from the design collaborations. This is why you see 2 outgoing. Okay. So now once this is done, since my goal is to connect my plumbing shared folder, in other words, the packaged files that I create from the team folder plumbing, since that's what I want to do, but give it over to the architect side, I wouldn't share this file. I wouldn't come over here and initiate the sharing, which is how you would do it in a moment. I'll show us this, but this is how you would do it if you were to do it through docs. You wouldn't want to do it this way. What you would do, since you're trying to transfer over the packaged files, is you would start off under the design collaboration module. And of course, I've already done it, but this is just so that you can see. This is the outcome, actually. If it will open up here for me. And, or did I do it the other way? Let me see real quick. Settings. No, okay, perfect. Yeah, even I get confused with all of my tabs here. So to do it, though, what you do is you're going to go to the design collaboration module, and you're going to go down to the settings. Now, I'm trying to share the packaged files from the plumbing team over to the architecture team, and I do that over here. So instead of going to the docs environment and sharing a particular folder, which is a very legal maneuver, but it's not good if you're trying to share the packaged files, because this is more automated for that. Okay, I'll show us the other way in just a second. So plumbing, I'm going to go bridge team automations, and here's where I would have selected. Now I have already clicked on this, as you can see, but here's where I would have selected Graitec North America is the account, that's the architecture side, and the project that this is connecting to is the architecture project. Because I clicked on this checkbox within the plumbing, because I did that, and I didn't do anything else with docs, when I go to the architecture side and I go, well, I don't even have to go anywhere else. Even from within the docs, I can see that my shared folder now has the plumbing's packaged folder. And if we're familiar with the docs environment and how design collaboration works, you'll see that this is acting as if the plumbing team was here, but the plumbing team is not here at all. This is a bridged connection. And by the way, you can always tell when something is bridged or not, because when you select it, you'll see some indicators here, and it gives you the 2 arrows. Okay. So, but I can also see this under the design collaboration module from the architecture side. Keep in mind, they have shared their packaged files with us, or with the architecture side. So if I come over here, I will see external and I will see internal. It is Autodesk's way of letting you know that this plumbing team is coming from outside of you. Okay, and you can see that I already have, well, rather, the plumbing team already has a packaged file that's ready for us to consume on our side. So I can click on this. I can do everything I normally can already from within the design collaboration module. So I can compare, I can consume. I'm not going to do those things, but I could do those things because they're on that timeline. And moreover, that file is automatically already here. So if I don't want to consume and I just want to use the shared method, we're familiar with the way the data flows within the docs environment. The shared method is basically where you say, hey, the architecture file, this RVT file that comes from the WIP portion, is going to take the plumbing file straight from the shared folder. That way, when the plumbing team creates another package, I don't have to do anything about consuming manually. Since I've already gotten it from the source, this is going to version up, and I'm just going to get their updates as soon as they do their package. Okay, this is all the same. The only difference you see here is that this folder exists where I don't have their team folder. And to recap, that's all because the plumbing team who wanted to share something with me, that is their packaged files, came over here and clicked on this and clicked on the project for the account that they want to share with. Now I can do that live going backwards, because you'll notice that if I go to the plumbing project, there is nothing here that says internal and external. And the reason for that is because the architect side has not bridged their team folder back to the plumbing side. Not their team folder, but rather their shared folder, I should say. So how do I do it? It's the exact same procedure, just backwards. Go back to design collaboration, go down to settings. Oh, looks like they're going to be doing some maintenance. And then here, I'm going to say, hey, look, I need you to take the architecture packaged folder, that is the folder that exists under the shared folder by default, and I'm going to say bridge the team automation so that this team's packaged files can get transferred to the plumbing project owned by Graitec AETG main. I hit next, and I hit save. I can go over to the plumbing side, and you will see that this will now populate to show what just occurred there. Now you can see that from the plumbing's perspective, for the plumbing perspective, architecture is external, they are internal. Okay. Any packages I now do will come through. Any packages I now do from the architecture side will also just be stored here under the plumbing's shared side. Okay. I already created the package, so you can already see that it's coming through. And this is automatic. Now, this is the simplest way to get started with bridging if you are using the ACC environment with design collaboration and teams. And what I mean by teams is that if you go to your settings under the design collaboration module, you should see teams, teams already defined. If you were to go to here in your project and you didn't see this, that would mean that your teams are not set up, and all you're doing is you're using the ACC environment as a OneDrive in a sense, because you're using only the docs environment. Okay. Now let's go ahead and jump into the docs environment. The benefit of using design collaboration, by the way, is that you do get that timeline, you do get the automation, and you have the permissions are a lot easier to manage. In fact, if I might just go off on a quick tangent, you can see how easy it is to set the permissions up on this, because I can say, hey, look, I'm under the project, the plumbing project, and I'm going to say anybody who is part of this team. If I click on the checkbox and say manage team members, I can see that anybody who is a plumbing engineer role has edit access. Now, of course, anybody that says inherited, it just means that they are an administrator of at some level. So, of course, that person is going to have access. But anybody with this role now is included in this team called plumbing, which, jumping over to docs, we can see is this right here. And if I were to look at the permission settings, you would see plumbing engineer. It's a role. They get edit access. And there's nobody under that role right now, but that's because it's just me in this project as a demo. But if I wanted to have people added onto this, all I'd have to do is say project admin members. And when I add a member, I would just give them the role of plumbing. And you can have multiple roles. But if I do this, now this person, that is me in this case, will be included under that team folder. Now, I already could see it because I was the administrator. So it's a moot point for me, but the idea, the concept remains the same. Now, you'll eventually see a little drop down, but It's kind of a thing that I do. I go really quick, and I think I go a little too fast for the computer. So I just refreshed, and there's my name again because I'm included as a plumbing engineer rolled person. Okay, but that's just kind of a side point. That's all of what that is to say that if you're using design collaboration, this is the one of the best ways for you to initiate your bridging between projects. Again, that can happen between projects within the same hub or projects with different hubs, like in our example here today. So it would take a little while. I don't think I'll do it unless by popular demand you want to see the whole process. But what would happen is that I would come over. Now this is the architectural model, but I would come over, I would make my changes, I would synchronize Essential, and pretending to be the plumbing side still, I would publish it, which would update this to version 4. Then I would package it, which is design collaboration, extend the 3 dots. Under plumbing, I would say create a package after my latest publish, and that would, in essence, copy the latest version of the plumbing RVT file from my team folder to the shared folder within my plumbing project itself here, and change this to version 2. But because this is the folder that's been bridged, the other side gets the update at the same time automatically. So the architecture side, which doesn't have the plumbing team, but they do have their folder, would get this as well. One quick thing to mention, and this applies to both if you're using the design collaboration module to do the connections or the docs module, which you're about to see. When you transfer anything through Bridge, you're giving the other team a copy of it. So if I were to go to my plumbing side and I were to delete this file, this would not have any bearing on the other side, which already has a copy. Okay, so even if I go to the plumbing side and I delete our entire bridge by going over to Bridge and then selecting this and saying, hey, I need to delete that bridge all entirely, which would stop any further data transfers, it would not get rid of what's already been transferred. That's already on the other side, so keep that in mind. All right. So what happens if we don't want to use the design collaboration, or if we have other things where we're not creating any files that need to be packaged per se? Okay. So for that, I've created, I was about to say, I know I have an RVT file there. For that, I've created an example PDF file, just called it the architectural set.pdf. And the idea is that I want to transfer anything that I put under this folder over to the other side, but I don't want to use Design Collaboration's package feature, because normally, this is not entirely always the case, but normally the Design Collaboration's package feature is going to be handling RVT files. Now, of course, you can attach non-RVT files to those packages, and I'm sure you all have tried that at some point, but Autodesk has given us the ability to do the following, so I want to show us this as well. And the way that this works is I'm just going to tell the ACC environment from the architecture project side, I want to share the approved sets folder, which includes this PDF, over to plumbing. And plumbing should, and this is something that we need to have communication between the two projects, the two project leaders, because they need to be prepared to receive it, because once they receive it, they're going to be asked, where do you want that file to be? And they have, as you can see here, I've already created a subdirectory directly under project files in this example, and a subdirectory manually that says architecture team. And this is where I want, or I plan as the plumbing project person, to put anything I receive from the architect. Okay, so let's see a rundown of how that process looks. First of all, you need to have that handshake. Well, we've already done that on step 1. You don't have to do this again. In fact, once you create a project, once you bridge into another project or initiate that handshake, you'll never have to do that again. You'll never press this button again as far as communicating from this, from your project to the other project goes, unless you came over and deleted that bridge. Then you'd have to do that again. Otherwise, you would never do that. It would all be about what's outgoing and all of what is incoming. And by the way, you won't spend too much time under the bridge tab, because this is all going to be informative. There's a time and a place to be here. We're trying to pause different connections and things like that, or remove certain connections. But largely, this is all informative. You can come over here and say, share with the project, files and folders from the architecture side, and I'm going to select that. But you can see already a little bit of the complexity. There's nothing, these are not settings or anything. This is just all the folders, but they are all set linearly. So they're not, so this approved sets folder comes from the project files. Let's see, this architecture folder comes from the shared side, then under project files, and you see the same name folder, but it comes from the work in progress folder. This can get a little confusing, especially if your project has many different folder structure, a large folder structure. Okay. I'm going to talk about these two in just a second, but I'm going to hit cancel here. There's a better way, at least I think so, than doing this. This is definitely going to do the job, and this is exactly the same as doing what we're about to do next. And what I'm about to do next is go to, from the architecture side, because remember the idea is that I want to send over the approved sets folder from the architecture project to the plumbing project, and the plumbing project side will receive me here. Okay. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to just right click. Now I could have clicked on the three dots, that's fine. I could have gone to project files, then clicked on this dot here. It's the exact same process. It's all about the approved sets folder. Now I just want to make a mention that you could have right clicked on the file itself, and you could have clicked share. And by the way, that's how we're going to proceed in just a second. However, if you do this, you won't have the ability to automatically send the architectural set.pdf file every time this PDF file upgrades to the next version. That's reserved only for folders. So best practice says, unless you have a really good reason to just send this file at this current version and that's it, always send the folder itself. So that's what we're going to do here. Now, in both cases, it's going to look the same when you right-click and say share. It's going to come up with this dialog window. This dialog window is simply going to say, hey, I want to share it with, you have the three different options. Different people, just a simple link, or a different project. And by the way, the reason that this is grayed out is because in order for this to actually be available to all of your users, as an administrator, you would need to go over to the settings, click on advanced, and then check off the box that says, let me send this to people who don't have a license. Those are not the words that it says, but that's the idea behind it. Because when you send anything with just a link, you are able to send it with others who do not have an Autodesk ACC license. They don't even have to have Revit, actually, because they can just use the online viewer. That's free. Of course, they can't author the file, but they will be able to, I believe they will be able to make markups on it. But it doesn't go back and forth like you might be familiar with within the Docs environment. So just keep all of that in mind. However, in this case, and now this would have been the same as if I had done this to the PDF file individually or the folder. Because I did it to the folder, I can click on this button that says automatically sync updates. What this button is doing is it's saying anytime any file within this approved sets folder gets upgraded or rather changed, I want you to automatically send a copy of it to the receiving end. That's all that button does. And notice what it says here. It should probably say it here. New folders and subfolders. If the project isn't, it will tell you that it only works with folders, not with files. This will actually be blocked away, unclickable, if it was just an individual file. Okay, and of course, include subfolders just means that if I had any folders within the approved sets, that would be included as well. Now, the title that you give it is going to be used only once. However, it is important because it allows the receiving end to get an idea of what you're sending them. So we'll send a somewhat descriptive title. For example, we'll say this is the approved sets folder. Now they're going to know that it's coming from the architecture project, so I don't have to put that in here. They're also going to see that it comes from the Graitec North America hub, so I don't have to do that here as a name. Okay, so you don't have to put the company name of the project. Just something that's a bit descriptive. They'll easily tell that yes, and we will have already spoken, so they'll know. Oh yes, this is the approved sets folder that is being sent over. Now, I'm the architecture project. I'm going to send it to who? To another project, as you can see here. But that can be any other project within my, that I may have connections with, or any other bridge project. I recommend you do it this way because if you do try to send it with a project that you don't have a connection to, you might cause some issues. So just go to the Bridged Projects tab. This tells you which bridges are active in this project, the architecture project. And so I can see the plumbing project is available. So I'll click on that, and it just lets me know what's going to happen. I'm going to send over this folder. It's got one file on the inside, and I can go back and say, I need to add extra files here. I might need to add a different folder. Okay, so you can add folders within different areas. They don't need to all be connected in one way or the other. I can add a message, but when I hit share, all I've done is I've now, we still have our handshake. I've extended my hand to the plumbing side, but I'm not the one responsible for putting my files on a particular folder location on the plumbing side. It's as if you just extend your hand, you give a set of files to somebody. It's up to them for them to take the file. First of all, they have to accept it. And secondly, for them to store it into their own folder structure. So the responsibility comes to the receiver. Okay. So I've done my job, though, by extending my hand. Now, I can easily see that I've done that by going to the bridge, and I can see the outgoing. Approved sets folder has been sent out. The status is the other team has yet to accept it, and it's still in review. Now, I just received an email. This is one of the emails you don't really need to do anything with, because if you just go to the other side and you go to the bridge side of the receiving side, you will already get that notification. Now, my recommendation is that before you accept anything from anybody, make sure, you already would have expected this because you would have been in communication, but make sure you know where you're going to put their files. Now, I've already created a bridged files folder with a architecture team subdirectory to store the files that I'm expecting from the architect. So let's place that in there by going to the bridge. In this case, when you're accepting something from a docs bridge, you do need to go over here to make that to accept it. So I'll just hit this little line item. It'll set me down to approve, and I get to see what I'm receiving from the other side. Okay, and I'll say I want to either reject it. You can see that on the very bottom, or I want to accept it, but I have to add it to a particular folder in my project, which is the plumbing side. This is the receiver. So I clicked on that button, and now it's going to give me my folder structure. This is now the architect side. Some people like to put it under the shared, and they like to create a folder within the shared. Probably better to do it out here, because the shared folder is usually something that is automated already. Everything here is created by the system itself, the ACC system. Nothing stops you from doing it, though. You won't break it too much. Just, I think it's all about what a user will expect. Okay, a user will expect anything under the shared folder to correspond to a team folder that holds its packaged information. That's what a user would expect. Okay, but nonetheless, I'm going to say I want this approved sets to be under the architecture team folder under the bridged files. So I'm going to say go ahead and add it to that, and that's me accepting the files from the architect and then storing it under my own folder structure. Again, that's the receiver's responsibility. Now, this blue item here is it's always going to be there. It's going to say, hey, look, I just accepted it, but it's going to take a few seconds. So it'll go away on its own if you just refresh, but I don't even bother with that. I just go down straight to the files, and I go right over to where the files should be, and there's the approved sets. And the files are not there yet, but that's because it takes a few seconds. That's what that little blue icon was talking about. So if we just stay here, you'll see that it's going to start to appear. I just received an email. And by the way, while that's happening, you're receiving emails that can all be handled by going as an administrator to the project admin and going into the notifications area, where you'll be able to modify how often you receive emails, or if you even receive them for different things, different aspects of the AEC, from the ACC environment, like bridges and things like that. Okay. So it just allows you to handle other things, things that, like bridge. Do you want to get an email out of it? No, never send it to me, or always send it to me, at the moment that it happens, and it happens here as well. All of the different things that you can do from the ACC environment, you can control if you get notifications or not. And we're going a little bit off of the bridge topic, but it's kind of related because you will get a lot of emails anytime things change. Okay, so keep in mind that. Now, enough time has gone by. I'm going to go back to the bridged files. I'm going to go back to the architecture team, approved sets. There, in fact, is my file. Again, there's the indicator. It says this is a bridged file. So now the architecture team, if they did anything with this file, whether it is they upgraded it or anything, it will upgrade with me, or mine will upgrade with theirs. If they delete theirs, mine remains. Okay. Now you'll notice that mine is at version 2 here, and the one under the plumbing project is at version 1. Totally fine. They are the same. They are at the same level. They have the same content, but the reason that I have version 2 here is because I had 2 different updates to this file before I ever even created that bridge connection with this folder, which included that file. At this point, whatever the difference is, should remain. So if I make this version 3, this will always be one version behind that, so it'll be version 2. There could be some differences there because somebody might manually come over and make current, which you can't see that yet because I only have one, make current 1, so they might put something on top of another. There's some slight things that could change, but in large part, what we've seen here is the concept so far. Okay. So now if I come over and let me see if I can go ahead and bring in, I have an example file. I'm just going to drag that over. Now it's the same file name, and I took care to call it the same file name. And all I've done is I'm upgrading this. So this could be considered, I printed out another print set or anything else. This could be a PDF file. This could be an RVT file, a CAD drawing. The moment that CAD drawing gets changed, which, by the way, if it's just AutoCAD vanilla, it's going to get changed every time you click save. So keep that in mind. But anytime that gets changed, like in this case, I'm going to hit done and it'll process off to the side. This becomes version 3. Because of the arrows, this will become version 2 once the processing is done. Okay. All right, so to recap everything, what we've seen here are the 2 major ways that Autodesk's ACC environment allows us to create these bridges. They do it either through the design collaboration module. Who should be doing that? Those who are using the team folders to communicate. In other words, from a local perspective, if you're creating your files under the plumbing team, when you're ready to give it to the next team over, you package it so it goes up to the shared folder. If you're using that method, then going over to the design collaboration side, going over to the settings, going into the bridge team automations, and selecting the other side, and them doing the same with you should happen. And that's how you would transfer your files. And now keep in mind, of course, this is just transferring packaged files, whether it's RVTs, DWGs, whatever you've packaged is ultimately the idea. If you're trying to transfer over files that are not intended to be inside of the package, then we're talking about the docs environment, which is what we just did. Well, we did it under the architectural team, but nonetheless, we did that by selecting a folder, sharing that particular folder, and it's a manual thing. We're just sharing that manually outward. Okay. Again, and this should have already updated, by the way, so let me just go back. And there's version 2, and you can see that updated as well. Okay. It could take a couple of minutes just because there's a lot of things going on in the background. But you can see that that's now been updated. That's version 2. The original one is version 3 now. Okay. All right. Here is something that helped me a lot when I was getting started with this, and I think that you all will enjoy it as well. And that is because when I first started with Bridge, I thought, maybe you thought the same thing, but I thought that it was all the same. But in fact, they are 2 different things. So I've got pulled up the help menu, and the best way to say how to find this is just to go to Google or to some search engine and just type in Autodesk Docs Help. Now this actually works with anything, Revit 2026 Help. That will work. What you want to look for is anything that says help.autodesk.com, and it'll look like this. And when you click on that, it takes you to the official help for that product. So Autodesk Docs Help. And sometimes you'll have to add the word online. but otherwise you should be able to find help.autodesk.com. There's docs help, and that's what will get you started. What I did, I've already got it pulled up, but what I did is I came down and I said, okay, for the docs, I want to see the bridge, and this is all about the bridge. If you want to see if you want to see the manual for this, basically, and I did the same search technique, and I'm going to close this one because I've already got it here, but it's the same search technique for design collaboration help, and I came down to bridge for design collaboration. Same idea between the two, just different methods of doing it and different use cases. Okay, so. But these two things would be helpful. Okay, Autodesk Docs help and Autodesk Design Collaboration help. Get down to the bridge section, and you can see a lot more of the finer details and the specifics. So, okay.
And Frank, I threw that link in the chat so they can click right on that to go right where you were talking.
Awesome! Thank you so much, Misty.
You got it.
All right. Well. So I'm going to leave it open. This is what I've got for you today. I want to leave it open for some questions. Missy, did we get any questions or anything? And just a real quick reminder, make sure to fill out that poll off to the side there if you want to continue to be in contact. We offer a service to help with all of this.
Yes, absolutely. So you can answer right there on the right-hand side of your screen that you are interested in training and services like are up and ready for Docs and Bridge. That'll let us know you're just interested to see what we have to offer. I'm going to go ahead and throw this on the screen too for you guys, so you could just click right there to just learn more about it. As far as questions, I think that you already kind of responded to Matt's question in the chat earlier. Is there any final things that you wanted to hit on or anything as we close out the webinar?
Let's take a look. If we struggle getting cooperation from our clients to properly set up ACC projects as it is, you struggle as it is what you're saying. Would you recommend requesting admin permissions from them? That project opposed to asking them to. Absolutely, yes. I do this often if I'm helping a customer and I'm helping them. They're our customer, but then they say, well, we're working with another organization, and the other organization is not our customer, so we don't have any admin rights to their project or to their hub. I will ask our customer to connect me with them, and then I will try to either get them to give me admin privileges, which doesn't work out too well because, from their perspective, I'm just some other company somewhere. But what I'll end up doing is I'll say, let me speak to somebody who does have admin privileges and let me control your screen to get this all set up. And I'll explain it kind of like what we did here as I set it all up. But if you can manage getting them to give you admin permissions, then all the more power to you. And then you can just do it on, you can put it up. Because unless the other side knows what they're doing with all of it in terms of the setup, it'll be a little bit tougher to do,
Love it. Love it. Yeah. If you guys think of any questions after the webinar, I'm going to throw this in the chat. It's webinars@graitec.com. And that's even for you guys who are watching this on demand. So after the webinar has already happened, we always check our inbox at webinars@graitec.com. So you can send that over. I'll get you connected with the right person with the right answers. And, I really love when people send me ideas of topics they want to hear and see webinars on. Love it. Extra kudos points if you send that to us. So we do want to thank you for joining us today. We hope it was meaningful and impactful for you and your businesses. Frank, as usual, thank you so much for joining us as well.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope you all have a good day. Bye.